All right, so I'm gonna start disassembling the front end on this Road Glide. It is a 2007. I'm not here to really coach you or instruct you how to disassemble this. One thing I would recommend is grabbing a service manual for your bike. Don't think you're too good for that when it comes to a lot of the torque specs, a lot of stuff like that in the future or right now. It's really nice to have that on hand and not question whether, Wide Glide Rider 69 on the Harley Davidson forums has the correct torque specs or not from 20 years ago. So definitely grab a service manual. You're not too good for it. I'm not too good for it. I like using it when I ever have to question myself. So refer to that if you have any questions. There's a ton of videos of probably disassembly online. But I'm not going to spend too much time telling you guys how to do it. I'm just going to get this pulled off, and then when we go to assemble it, that's when we'll take some more time and I'll kind of show you guys what Geezer requires you to do to get that 49 mil conversion on this 07 that came with the 41 mil conversion. So I'm going to get to taking this apart. Stick with me and we will get to assembling our new triple trees, and then we might call it a day after that and get back to it tomorrow. Hell yeah. All right, so we're getting ready to set up the Geezer Engineering triple tree. Gonna get that lower stem in there with a bunch of Loctite, and then there's a set screw that keeps that from backing out, just in case for whatever reason the Loctite got broke loose or whatever, just a little peace of mind. But before we pack the bearings, and I'll show you guys how to do that too the correct way, I just want to do a quick comparison of these triple trees compared to Geezers. I'll show you real quick. I know I saw all the grease on that lower triple. Disregard that. That was not me, but just taking a quick look. This is going to be the 41 mil lower triple. You can see this is going to be the 41 mil upper triple. They're not even the same diameter. Kind of lost power there for a sec. Don't know what was up with that, but these are the same diameter, are not the same diameter. This is bigger. The reason why this top triple tree clamp is smaller is because it's not even really a clamp. What it does is the fork tube essentially slides in there, and then the cap comes on top and pretty much sets that in there so it doesn't move. But the crappy part is that the cap doesn't compress the fork tube on this triple tree, so it's not giving you any stability. It's not clamping the tube, and there's essentially nowhere for you to clamp it. There's no bolts like the lower where there's one. So this isn't doing a lot for performance. This isn't doing a lot for really any bike that has modern suspension on it. So super happy to be getting rid of this. let me just show you how that fork tube essentially slides into there, just so you can get a small visual representation. But this upgrade alone, the triple trees and converting to 49 millimeter, is going to be light years ahead of what was on there. Look at the two tops here. Not only does this look way, way better, that diameter is obviously set for a 49 mil, and we have clamping area, clamping surface for this guy. And this, like I said, just slides that fork tube in, doesn't clamp, doesn't create any support, any stability. This is gonna make a huge difference, guys. So let me just show you real quick how that goes together. I'm gonna set this one down, and already I am super excited to see the improvements that this conversion kit's gonna make. And so here on that fork tube, you can see this is where the lower clamp was clamping to it. This is where that top piece slides into the upper triple, and essentially the cap just compresses down onto the top. And this little gasket here creates a seal. This gasket, if you even just finger tight this, starts to split away from that piece. So in order for it to create a good seal, this thing's not going to be tight at all. So you're not really clamping down, you're not, you know, compressing down onto that stock top triple tree on these 41 mils. It's just there, and it's just surrounding it pretty much. There's no clamp, there's no bolts securing this, nothing like that going on. So the triple trees, like I said, alone are going to be a huge improvement. I'm super excited to be getting rid of these 41 mil and getting rid of those super dinky triple trees, man. I'm just over those after seeing the comparison. But we're gonna get those bearings packed, get the new races in, and I'll show you how to pack the bearings. And I think we're gonna get that triple tree set up maybe in the bike today, but I will leave it there. We'll see where we go from here, and I'm gonna start packing those bearings. All right, we're gonna pack the upper and lower triple tree bearings. If you have latex gloves, nitrile gloves, this is where you pull them out and use them. The best way to pack these bearings is just the old school way, where you put a nice fat dab of it right on your palm. You hold the bearing in your hand, and this is going to be essentially the teeth or jaw that we're going to bite at the grease, and we're just going to work it in to that little grease pile until that grease starts to poke out of the top. We want the grease pushing out of the top, so we know all the rollers have good amount of grease in them. The whole bearing has a good amount of grease in it. Like I said, this is the best way that I do it. I've seen people vacuum seal them. I don't have a vacuum sealer. Not gonna just shove it in there, although that might work. Doing it this way is gonna give you peace of mind. It's the best way. If you go ask one of the old heads, this is probably how they're gonna teach you how to do it too. So stick with me, I'll fast forward. But really, this is me telling you this is the best way to do it, so don't half-ass it. All right, we're just gonna start with our waterproof high temp grease. Get a nice dab, and we're gonna stick it on our palm. And what I do is I create a little ramp where it's thinner at the bottom and thicker at the top. That way, with my little jaw or teeth, I can really start biting away, start taking little bites, work some of that thicker stuff down, and then, you know, start taking bites at that too once it thins down. So we're gonna try to fit all of that in this one bearing, and I will come back with you and we'll see how much we fit in there. Ooh, all right, so we didn't fit all that grease in the bearing. I did a really good job of fitting almost all of it though. And once you see, like I said, the grease coming out of the top, you'll see little beads of it because it fits between those rollers. Start poking up. I start to rotate it, keep eating at that grease, eating at it. At some point, you'll get grease coming out of the top on every single piece. You're probably good to go at that point. It's probably packed well enough. I go maybe once or twice around just to kind of get it packed, make sure there's no air bubbles, anything that I may have missed or not packed as tightly as I wanted. I go through again, maybe just a quick minute and a half, pack it, rotate it, pack it, rotate it, over and over again until I feel good, feel like it's packed, a lot of grease is missing, it's in the bearing, I'm feeling good. It is tedious work. It took me almost 10 minutes of just sitting there, staring at the bearing, staring at the grease, readjusting it, eating at it, eating at it, eating at it. So don't give up. It's going to pop out of there. The more grease you get in there, the quicker that it's going to go for you. So I'm not going to make you guys watch me do the second bearing, get greased, but just wanted to show you how to do that first one. That way, if you're at home, you don't need any tools. Just need the grease, need the bearing, and your hand. So super nice way to get that done. Good peace of mind knowing that that's completely packed, and now we can throw that on our triple tree. All right, we're to the point where we can mess with this lower triple tree, the triple tree stem, and what we're gonna do is apply some red Loctite to these threads, and we're gonna put probably more on there than you would think. It's gonna be a pretty fat glob all the way down the threads. Once the threads are set, there's a groove here at the bottom that we are going to then use a set screw to secure that in there essentially permanently. So stick with me. I'm going to grab some Loctite. We will get these threads nice and Loctited up and get that set screw in there. So stick around and we'll get that going. All right, got that stem and just going to apply, like I said, all the way down the threads. A nice fat amount. I know that looks kind of crazy, but that's what we want. I don't ever want this coming loose. Doesn't ever need to come loose, so I don't feel bad putting that much on there. That's honestly what the instructions say. It's what I've seen people do in the past. That's what I'm gonna do. If you wanna do it another way, that's on you. And just wanna point out, the instructions also say that this does not go in at a perfect straight angle due to the 5-degree rake. That 5-degree rake is definitely going to help you with the performance, with the trail of your bike. Those 41 mil front ends were nowhere near superior as where these 49 are. So I'm going to get these threaded all the way in. Got a little Loctite on the aluminum triple. I just want to wipe off real quick, and then we will get this set, and we want to torque it to 120 foot-pounds using a 12 mil Allen, which is not a huge deal. I have a pretty decent vise setup, and obviously to protect the aluminum, we will put it in a towel or use some leather gloves or something just to protect it. So have that threaded all the way in. We're going to torque this before we do the set screw. So give me one sec. Almost didn't think I had a 12, which is pretty uncommon for me to not have a Harley tool. Not that 12 is super common, but did some digging around and found a hardened 1/2-inch drive. So I'm going to get this turned around to the camera for you guys so you can see my little vise setup. I'm going to toss this in a torque wrench and we're going to torque it to 120. Boom! There's the vise setup. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, but protects the aluminum, and it's going to hold that there so I can get this thing torqued. There it is. So I just flipped that tree around, made it a little bit closer so you guys can see where that set screw goes, how we're going to access it. It's going to be in the hardware, and I think it's a 2.5 mil. There's the end that we're going to screw down. We're also going to put a very big amount of Loctite on this guy, and not only are we going to Loctite this and get it into that set hole, we're going to finish it off with Loctite on top. So I know that sounds a little weird, but like I said, we are planning on this never coming out again. So I'm going to get this put in there for you. Don't force it. Should go in there nice and smooth. Just using 2 fingers to spin her in. Don't want to overdo it. And we're going to finish with the Loctite in there. Can't even see the Allen head. Put the Loctite in there, so and that's going to take even longer to cure because that is exposed to oxygen. The way Loctite cures is once it's in the threads, the oxygen's essentially taken away, and that's when the curing process starts. We're going to let this sit for 24 hours. All right, so I got that triple tree, the lower half put together at least. What Giza recommends is that sits for 24 hours. I would 100% recommend that as well. It's kind of like putting a chain kit on where you really want to let those sprocket bolts cure for 24 hours with that Loctite as well. To essentially create a permanent bond, you don't want any of this stuff backing out, creating problems. I think you can let it cure, get to the point where it's not going to run all over the bike, and then maybe start messing with parts, installing. But don't go off and ride, don't start the bike. Once those vibrations start getting to that Loctite, if it's not fully cured, there's potential that it vibrates loose. So let it sit for 24 hours before you go ride it. I know you're probably getting to this point, you're excited, want to go ride, got a pretty sweet setup. Just wait. Wait that 24 hours and let it cure. We're going to get this triple tree put on. I'm going to let it cure for a little bit, and we'll probably have the lower and upper done by the end of the day. Took a little break to go grab some hardware from the local Ace, and I forgot to film. I did get the lower neck bearing on the lower triple. See, I got that bearing there with the dust cover. Also, where we put that set screw is behind this black bracket. I wanted to show you guys what this bracket setup is for. This kit, the 4A kit, is includes everything you need. So it's going to have a couple brake lines for you as well. And you can see kind of these standoffs here. These brake lines actually are fixed in here, and this bracket holds it. So let me grab the brake lines and kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. I really like this. It looks like it's going to be a super clean setup. Let me grab those brake lines quick. So they are braided, got the 90-degree banjos at the end. Here we have the fixed hard lines. And those fixed hard lines are actually what sits, see if I can get it, in that standoff. So it sits in that standoff, and then Geezer actually provides you with a bracket that goes over this and hides those hard fittings altogether. So super clean. I'll get that outside bracket on there and show you guys kind of what I'm talking about in a sec. Here is that bracket with the backside cover on it. Super freaking sweet. Super happy with how clean that is, how much it covers. We are looking pretty dang good. I'm gonna do a little cleanup around the garage, maybe take a little break. It's about lunchtime here. But honestly, I think we are ready to clearance our steering stop. You'd have to do a little modification to the frame there. So we'll clearance that and then get these triple trees on, and then of course it's time to build the suspension and set it up for our riding style. All right, so one thing we can do while we wait, I'm gonna have Andy come over after work with his die grinder and carbide bit and clearance the steering stop, part of the frame on the Road Glide. And I honestly trust his work with that carbide bit more than probably anyone else I know. So I'll feel good knowing that it's going to be done cleanly. But like I said, while we wait, we can set the preload on these cartridges, which is not hard to do. And we could get the suspension built. So like I said, should be halfway straightforward. The preload at least is really easy to set, and they give you some tools or some wrenches to essentially have that lock nut secured or loosened, so don't worry about having any specialty tools or anything like that. So here's the cartridge, literally just took it out of the plastic. Gonna take the cap off and the stop and put them to the side right now because we're gonna want to be able to hold this straight up, or at least have some sort of a grip on it without you know, losing these pieces across the garage. So here's the cart. This preload, to set your preload, you have a little window here. And it's numbered 1 through 6. Don't know if you can see that. Currently it's set at 0. What I'm going to start at is I'm going to start it at 2. I want to get that line where it's at 0 up to 2. And the way we do that is we are going to get a good nice grip up here at the top. You can see that there are essentially 2 nuts. One is spinning the cartridge, and the other one, spinning the cartridge, setting the preload. The other is essentially a lock nut. So once you have that preload set, we can lock it in so it doesn't go anywhere when we're on the bike, riding around, stunt riding, drifting, doing whatever. So just with my hands, you might have to use the tools depending on how they sent it. I just had to use my hand. I backed the lock nut off. And we're going to put our hand around the bottom nut, somewhere where we can see the window. And we're going to come across on the top, and we are going to start spinning counterclockwise. I'll let you see a little bit. It's going to slowly start moving up. We're already almost at 1. And we want to get it to 2. Like I said, that's where I'm going to start. You guys might weigh more than me. I'm probably 185 pounds, not a very heavy dude. So I don't need to get too excessive. If I get on the bike, start doing, you know, what I do, drifting, wheeling, burnouts, anything like that, and I think that the preload's too tight, too loose, I can get back in it, just pop the caps, and you should be able to reset the preload that way. Went past 2 a little bit, that's all right. We can go back in clockwise and get that preload back down. I have it, I don't know if you can see. Doesn't look perfectly straight in the camera, but that's maybe because it's not. As far as lining it up and actually having it at that notch, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm gonna get this lock nut back down. We have it set at 2, and we're just gonna tighten that down with our hands. Geezer is gonna supply you with 2 wrenches. One to grab the lock nut and one to grab the actual preload nut. One's going to secure it where you want it. You don't want this bottom one to move. And we're going to tighten that top one and essentially lock our preload down. So they sent these wrenches. It looks like they're dual purpose. One for the cartridge, one for the shock. Obviously we're on the cartridge here today. And we're going to want to go left on the bottom like we're loosening it. That's essentially to make it not move. And on the top, we're going to obviously go to the right to tighten it down. But we just want the top nut to move, so I'm going to try to do this here so you guys can see. And snug it down. Recheck your preload. Make sure it didn't move. I'm happy with where it's at. I feel good about that, you know, lock nut being tight, secure, and I won't make you guys watch me set the preload on the other cartridge, but that's how you do it. All right, we're back, just grabbing a few things. If you don't have them by now, or you don't have them in your arsenal and you're seeing this video, you probably want to get them. I got a 489 millimeter fork seal driver. It's a Motion Pro. They make pretty good stuff. Race Tech has them. You could probably find an Amazon knockoff pretty cheap online. I also have a 49 mil fork tube holder. Just goes in your vise, and you can either hold it vertical with those or horizontal with the side mounts. They do have magnets on the back, so it sticks to your vise, so you can do your thing, either opening it or closing it without having to worry too much. You will need some fork oil. I had some extra Spectro fork oil on the shelf. The one thing I didn't have was a deep 12 millimeter Allen that I went and grabbed for my work. And last but not least, this is kind of important, doesn't come in the kit obviously, it's some pipe dope or pipe sealant. And this is the Great White brand pipe joint compound is what it's called. If you want to find it at like Ace or whatever, this is going to come in handy. This is going to seal up where the damper rod bolt goes in. With the copper washer, it's going to prevent you from having any leaks down the road. I'll show you how to use that. And I think aside from that, you're going to have everything in that kit that Geezer Engineering sends you. And one more thing, I promise, dielectric grease. I like putting this on that rubber O-ring in the very top of the cartridge where it actually threads into the tube. Prevents it or lubes it up and helps it go in there nice and smooth, prevents it from tearing or ripping. But I'm going to go grab the fork tube and grab the fork cartridge, and we'll start there. All right, we got all our parts, tools organized. You're gonna need 4 things here right now. It's gonna be that top out spring, the damper rod cap or the oil cap. We have the actual cartridge and the fork tube. Obviously this is gonna be the bottom. The threads are the top of the tube, so we're gonna be inserting it through this way. Before I insert that, gonna get that top out spring on there. Remember to put that there. If you don't, you're gonna have a very bad time and you're gonna wonder why your touring bike's riding like shit. Finesse that through a little bit. All right, there it is at the end. I have it, the caps or the threads at the very end there as well. Not in the tube, haven't started the threads. At this point, what we can do is get this guy in here. Because we're going to be working out of the vise. Anyway, gonna snug it down, not overdo it, but get it nice and snug. All right, wanted to bring you guys closer so you could see what's going on. We're gonna do our inner and outer bushings. Lube those up with your fork oil before you do those. And I guess it doesn't really matter if you want to come from the bottom or the top. Gonna save yourself a little time and movement if you go from the bottom at this point. It's not hurting anything. We'll come in with this lower bushing, spread it apart just a tad bit so it can slip over there. Gonna hear it click in there audibly. Now we have nice lube on the outside, inside, and we can think about grabbing our lower fork leg at this point. So I'm gonna go grab it here. Here's that fork leg, dry as a bone. Gonna throw it over those bushings, so don't really want to put that in there dry. I've got a little bit of fluid in this cap that I'm gonna dump just along the edges to let it drip down on the side. Don't really want any of that fork oil on the outside where the fork seal is gonna sit, so don't know if you can see that there. I got a little drop. I'm gonna wipe that out and then we'll get that on there. All right. Really what I'm doing by getting lube in there is ensuring that it's gonna go on there smoothly. If you're following along with me on this video, take a second and stop. I did get a little bit ahead of myself while I was filming and lost focus. Take a look at my workbench. I forgot to put the oil lock cap on the end of that cartridge before sliding that fork lower on. I do end up saying I got a little bit ahead of myself in the video and go back and fix it. but it will save you a little bit of time if you just put it on there before you slide that lower fork leg on. Not going to scratch anything, and that seal is going to have a good mating surface by drying it out. And I slid that on there. You can see this got pushed a bit. I'm going to push this back towards the end. Don't worry about that upper bushing yet. We're going to grab our 12mm Allen, and this is where that pipe dope is going to come into play. We're just going to get a little dope right on where the bushing sits and mates against the fork leg. This is going to help ensure that we get a nice seal. Definitely be sure not to get it on any of the threads. So like I said, this is going to go just on that copper washer. Doesn't have to be covering it. That's a little too much. I'm going to wipe it off here. Oof. There's a little goof up there. But we saved it here. Do a little bit more on the other side. Make sure we got a good surface. And we're looking good here. Going to get that excess off the edges. Here's where that long Allen's going to come into play. And I really like to get kind of eye level with it, make sure we got it lined up. And we don't, so I'm going to mess with it a little bit. Sometimes just spinning it will get you where you need to go. Had a little tape in the way from packing. There we go. And you can get a little play out of the fork leg like I did there. You'll see it start threading in there. And once it gets done bottoming out or without you grabbing anything and tightening anything down, the cartridge cap is going to start spinning. I'm not sure if you can see that where it's at right now, but it is spinning. And it's time to either grab that or grab the tube and then retighten it. So it quits spinning and we can actually get a little torque on it. And at this point, once you get it tightened down, the fork leg will spin on you. I like to stand in front of it here and tighten it down a little bit more. So now it's tightened down to the point where it's not going to leak when we put fluid in there. We can finish building the actual fork with the seals, dust covers, everything else. And I'll show you guys how to do that here. Got a little bit ahead of myself, still working on those forks, or on the last one we just did together. All right, we're at a pretty good point where we're gonna build this suspension. I'm gonna grab that 49mm fork seal driver. And first thing I'm gonna grab is this washer. And on any Harley, 39mm, 41mm, 49mm, cartridge, traditional suspension, there is a right and a wrong way to install this washer. If you look at it closely, there is a sharp edge and a round edge. You always want the round to go down. That way it creates a nice, this flat edge creates a nice seal with the fork seal. A lot of people, I just actually did a set on a Sportster that these were upside down and he had a leak for a while. I could only suspect that this was part of the problem, was him installing that incorrectly. So take a good look at that. There's a sharp side with a perfect 90-degree edge. That's the part you want up. The round side has a nice soft edge and you want that down. Round is down. Put that washer in, we got the sharp side up. You can just tap that in there. Got our scent in there nice. Gonna grab your fork seal and just throw a little bit of lube around the edge for you here. It looks like there's a little bit of grease or lube already on it that Geezer put there for us. But no one wants to roll a fork seal lip, and it's just a good practice to lube it up a little bit. There is a right and wrong side for the fork seals as well. You can see that double ridge side. This also kind of has two ridges or two lips. Anytime you want to figure out the right way to do this, look for the numbers. the numbers are always up. The numbers always face up on these Harleys. I haven't done a single front end on these Harleys where the numbers on the fork seals ever face down. They always face up. So our fork seal, I'm gonna get this nice and even. Grab my driver again. Depending on the seal and fitment, you definitely have to hit it hard sometimes. Don't be too scared, but that right there did it. You can feel good about that. I'm gonna grab this clip, the retainer clip, which keeps the leg attached to the whole tube. I like to start with the round end, kind of work it in there. Get these two open end pieces in there, and then grab my favorite flathead and push it on in. You should hear an audible click. I heard it and watched it on both sides here. I have no issues with that. I feel really good about it. So we're gonna grab our dust seal cover here and finish the actual building process. On this, we're just gonna flip it and use the soft side, not the such sharp side that we used on the seal. Just let the weight of it fall on it a couple times and it's gonna seat. So now we're at this point, we have the full leg and cartridge built with the tube. Now we need to add fluid and essentially just button everything up here. So let me show you how to add fluid, or how I'm gonna add fluid to this. It is a little bit tedious, requires a little bit of patience, but I'm gonna throw this back in the vise and show you guys how we're gonna add fluid and then get this sealed up. All right, we're back in the vise. Got the fork seal, bushings, everything in there. I'm gonna put this down a little bit so it's not bumping into the stand. Yes, so you want enough room to work. This is gonna be it for us. Pull the cartridge up so we can get the fluid in that gap there. And then once we're done getting the fluid in there, seal it up, and that's the end of the actual suspension. We'll get back over to the triple trees here. But let me show you guys how to essentially add the fluid. This is the stock length tube, so we're only going to add 250 milliliters. I have a measuring cup that has that measured out. It's actually probably just a little bit above that 250 mark. I've used this cup enough that I know that there's always just a few milliliters at the bottom, especially on these cartridge front ends. So this is where I'm going to grab my seat, pull it up, get comfortable, and just get this fluid in there. Take my time, not in any rush. It's crazy that we only add about 8-9 ounces, I think is around what 250 milliliters is. The regular 49 mils take over 20 ounces when you rebuild them stock. So a lot of this is lubricant, and the nitrogen charged cartridges are doing a lot of the rest, but there is still some hydraulic function with this too, I'm fairly certain. So we're just gonna sit here and let it pour out. I might readjust. You can kind of push it over to the side a little bit, give you a little bit more room. Here. All right, just wanted to get some stuff cleaned up before we got this cartridge sent home. And with the preload, depending on how you set it up, and that top out spring, you're probably going to want to use, or going to have to use a little weight to get it started. And then once that's started, should be good to go. I always hate putting preload tension on those threads, so I try to help it as much as I can. This does not need to be overdone on top. Usually with these guys and these clamps, you can usually just tighten it down till the whole thing spins like that, and it's never overdone. If you don't have these, you can use your triple tree if you think you have some room on like a dyno or something, but I've done enough front ends that this is required for me. I wouldn't want to do suspension without something like this, or without an actual fork seal driver, but to each their own. We're going to now flip this over here real quick. That sound scared me. It's just the cap here, but it sounded like something was clunking around, and it wasn't. I guess it was, if you consider that something. Alright, so now we're back right here, and we want to tighten this even more. Got this held. I have a 12mm wrench that I'm going to use, and honestly, if you have a alignment punch big enough, I always stick it on the inside, so there's no blemishes. But if it's big enough in the correct size, there shouldn't be any blemishes anyways. I'm just being real careful with this powder coat here. Snug it down. It's a copper washer. You have that pipe dope in there. You don't need to overdo this at all by any means either. And we are done building the forks, and we can get over to installing the triple trees on the bike.